Hey everybody, Harry Symeou here from the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. What have I made of Arsenal's season so far? I think it's been an incredibly positive start. I think the performances have been good. Obviously, the results for the most part have been very good as well, with the exception of that defeat at Old Trafford. But I think once the dust settled, we were able to kind of look back on that and say, okay, it wasn't our day, but, you know, the performance was there. And I think that's what's giving Arsenal fans hope at the moment, giving Arsenal fans encouragement. And it is ultimately the sort of the kind of premise upon which the confidence that we have as a fan base at the moment is built. Standout players, there's been so many. It's really, really difficult to sort of narrow it down. But I'd say Granit Xhaka has certainly been one of them. Gabriel Jesus has been incredible. Martin Odegaard, when he's been fit, has been unreal too. William Saliba has been a big and welcome, really a strong addition to the back line. He's been brilliant since he's come in. It looks as though he's been playing in the Premier League all along. Am I surprised by how well these two teams have started? I don't really think so. I think there were signs at the back end of last season, even when Arsenal had a bit of a bump sort of right at the back end of the season, that things had improved overall. It was a difficult time. There were injuries, there were problems. And, yes, it was a disappointing end. And obviously Spurs pipped us to that Champions League place. But am I surprised that these two sides have started? Well, not really. I think Arsenal's fixtures have been pretty kind, with the exception of the trip to Manchester United. And obviously now we're going to see what we're made of, essentially, with games against Tottenham, Liverpool, and some other really strong sides to come. So I'm not surprised by the positive start. Was I pleased with the transfer window? Yeah, I was. I would say I'm pleased. I think that Gabriel Jesus was an incredible addition, the striker that we desperately needed. Zinchenko, a fabulous signing as well. And obviously we got a few additional squad players in and around as well, which was fantastic. And that's what we really, really needed. Could we have done more? Yeah, we probably could have. But I think Arsenal invested very heavily the summer before. And so I think there was always going to be a limit to what we were able to do in the summer just gone. We addressed the positions with the exception of one that I felt we needed. I think we still do need another midfield option. I still feel like when Thomas Partey is absent, the drop-off between him and the next option is too significant. So I wish Arsenal did another bit of business there, but obviously it wasn't to be. I think Tottenham have had a really good start to the season, obviously, in terms of results. I don't think the performances have been all that great. And it's really difficult for me to say that, because whenever I do, it's the classic, well, you're an Arsenal fan, of course you're going to say that. But genuinely, I've watched Spurs in full probably 5 or 6 times this season, and I've not been impressed with the level of performances. But the fact that they're still picking up results despite that, I think bodes really, really well. Conte has been a real favourite of mine in terms of as a manager for a long, long time. I'm a big follower of Italian football, so I'm well aware of his capabilities. I'm well aware of what he's all about. And it's a great appointment that Spurs have made. Will he be a success? It depends on what you define as successful. He got Spurs into the Champions League. I think he'll probably do that again. But can he take Spurs to that next level in terms of a title challenge? I'm not sure. But is that where Spurs should be? I don't know. That's up to you guys. But depends what you define as success. I think Arsenal fans, generally speaking, are behind Mikel Arteta now. There was a few people who, were calling for his head earlier on in his tenure. And although I didn't agree with it, I can understand why that was. It did look at various points that we were struggling, that we were void of ideas, that we were, finding it really difficult to kind of lay the foundations to kick on. But it seems now that he's getting there, and people are seeing results on the pitch. But I also think there's a really positive feeling around the football club that hasn't been there for some time. And maybe for people looking from the outside in, that doesn't mean an awful lot. But to Arsenal fans who are attending the matches week in, week out, we feel it. We feel that connection with our club again. The North London derby means a lot to me, but I'd be lying if I said it always did. Now, that might sound a bit sort of dismissive, but obviously growing up, I grew up in the height of the Arsenal-Manchester United rivalry, and that for me was the number one. So the North London derby, whilst it's always been important, has certainly grown in terms of its importance to me personally since the two clubs sort of became a little bit more equal in terms of what they were producing on the pitch. And credit to Spurs, because they've done a great job of closing that gap and eventually surpassing Arsenal. So now I think the derby has a lot more meaning to it for me than it did when I was a kid growing up. We live in and among each other. You know, I've got family members that are Spurs fans, not immediate family members, obviously. But so I come face to face with it all the time. So yeah, it means a hell of a lot. And fingers crossed we can get the result that we want. How do I feel about the game when it comes around? I'm always nervous. I'm always a wreck. And I actually like the fact that it's a 12:30 kickoff because it means I don't have to mull over it all morning. Predicted lineup for the Arsenal is really hard at the moment because of so much uncertainty around the fitness of a number of players. But if I had to guess, I'd go with Ramsdale in goal, White at right back, Saliba and Gabriel at centre backs, with Zinchenko maybe at left back, probably Kieran Tierney actually, as long as he's recovered from that problem with Scotland. In midfield, I'd go Partey, Xhaka and Odegaard, assuming that all those three are fit, with Saka on the right, Martinelli on the left and Jesus through the middle. In terms of a score prediction, I've got to be positive. I'm going to go with a 2-0 Arsenal win because it's at home. And I think both of us, in recent times anyway, have been really strong at home in these derbies. So I think the home advantage is a big thing. I think Arsenal and Spurs will both make the top four come the end of the season. I don't know in what order. I think there's going to be a lot of luck that plays a part in that as well. Can we keep players fit? The World Cup is a big problem slap bang in the middle of the season. And how people are going to recover from that, what the football is going to be like on the other side of that is unknown. And it's really difficult to predict. So I think we'll both finish in the top four, but I'm not sure which way round it will be come the end of the campaign.